Hi, and welcome to your lesson for myfreeactingclass.com for what is today, Wednesday, September the 9th. I am Michael Bean. Please stay tuned both here and to the website to see what's going to happen next. With school back in session, and a lot of people sort of restarting their life in September, we want to keep making this class as accessible as possible. And so there's a couple of options on the table, one of which is that we might push the time very slightly. So please check in on the website and I will update it as soon as I have information. I have confirmed guests for the next couple of days. Tomorrow, Laura Bertram is going to be joining us. Laura was, when she was a young actor, was so busy working on set as one of the leads in a TV show that she wasn't able to go to school. Instead, she was tutored on set. For years, she was one of the leads in I think a Canadian TV show called Are You Afraid of the Dark? Which she has a role in the reboot of it just now. They sort of, I think, brought her back as like one of the adults, as like a little Easter egg for the folks who watched her when she was a teenager, which I thought was pretty cool. And so she's had a couple of really solid roles on TV shows just in the past couple of months. And she's the first person who's worked as a recurring character on television recently during COVID. And so she's going to talk to us about that and about her journey as an actor. And I'm also hoping to convince her to come in and teach some My Free Acting class lessons. And so, to expose you to somebody who's just like not a dude and give you more perspective. Also, Laura teaches classes at the kids and teens school that I run. So I already know that she is a highly skilled teacher and I would love to have her on board and helping out. So today we are going to go over script analysis and talk about story. We've also got a really small group, so we can do questions. We'll leave time for Q&A at the end. Kevin's question yesterday was fantastic. Kevin, I was thinking about you especially. I'm glad you showed up because I wanted to make sure that there was something for you in this week's Actors Challenge. So I have a kid monologue that I really love from a movie, feature film came out a number of years ago. Called Crazy Stupid Love. Parenting again. Called Crazy Stupid Love. It's a fantastic monologue that I really love from the teen boy. It's really fun. It's and I'll show you that today, and we'll read that. Eve, how do you feel about reading a monologue for us? Yeah, you want to demo? Okay, great. But then basically I just went online. You've heard me talking in this lesson about where do I go to get content? So I just went online and Googled Crazy Stupid Love scripts, and I found monologues for several of the other characters. So I've got the monologue for the teen boy, I've got the monologue for the mom, I've got the monologue for the dad. And so this week's Actors Challenge will be a monologue. And so I'm looking forward to seeing what you do with that. And it gives you the opportunity. It's both the challenge of preparing text where you don't have somebody else to bounce off of. Obviously having somebody else to bounce off of is really helpful for memory. But also it means that you can craft it in the way that suits you the best. We come back to that Anthony Hopkins tool that we looked at yesterday of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Sort of how many times have you read it over? And we can talk today about ways to prepare monologues, the kinds of tools that you might use when you're breaking them down. And it's a little bit different, but the fundamentals are still the same. So let's take a look at the first of those monologues. And Eve, you're going to read Robbie, who's written as a 13-year-old boy. Hopefully that doesn't deter you, Eve, from giving it a shot anyway. Because it's such a fun monologue. So here we go. So Again, this is from Crazy Stupid Love. I will put into the chat window the link right there. So, actors challenge today. Oh, this week there is actually, I'm going to share a different script. So I've just put the script into the chat window. And if you're watching this video from home, then I want to show you where to find it. All you've got to do is hop onto here, myfreeactingclass.com, and scroll all the way down to the bottom of the page. Shoop, shoop, shoop. Here it is, this week's Actors Challenge. Download the script from Crazy Stupid Love here. Choose one of the monologues and record yourself performing it. Upload your best take to YouTube or Vimeo. Send the link to info@myfreeactingclass.com before 12 p.m. on Sunday. Oh, this should say September 20th. And then as soon as I've got the lesson from today uploaded, I will put it right here. Now let's take a look at that script. We've got David Jacobowitz. Hey, Kevin, do you want to read David Jacobowitz while we're going through this?
Absolutely.
Okay, great.
So, Robbie, I hear you're quite the soccer player.
So, David, I heard you broke up my parents' marriage.
He laughs awkwardly, shocked.
Yes, no, I am.
No, this is Robbie.
Oh, sorry.
You are David Jacobowitz, right? From accounting?
Yes, I am.
Here's the thing, David. In the end, she winds up back with my dad. He's better than you in every category except probably math. And she still loves him.
Robbie pops a photo of Tracy and Cal back up.
Listen, Robbie.
Now, I know what you're thinking. He's just a punk. What does he know about love? I know a lot more than you think, David. Just today, I had a meltdown, almost gave up on the love of my life. My dad's having his meltdown now, but long term, he won't stop fighting for my love. Then I won't stop sending Jessica texts that make her uncomfortable, and you need to know that.
Tracy re-enters. You ready to go?
Mommy, can we do Chinese for dinner?
Okay, so the context for this fantastic monologue, is I think a 13-year-old boy who's like deeply and slightly disturbingly in love with his babysitter. And there's no reason that Eve can't be a say like 14 or 15-year-old girl who's deeply and somewhat disturbingly in love with her babysitter, right? You keep Jessica the same, and we just alter the pronouns to say she instead of he. And then you get to say some of these really fun lines. One of the reasons that I like this particular kid monologue is the flip at the end. Now, let's look at the monologue for both the mom and for the dad. And so these ones I pulled directly off the internet, so there isn't... excuse me, I just need to have a parenting moment. Sorry about that, friends. For the mom monologue, Melissa, do you want to read this one? Okay, and then we'll look at the dad monologue right after that. Kevin, do you want to do that one?
Sure.
Perfect. Crazy Stupid Love by Dan Fogelman.
I'm unhappy, Cal. I've tried not to be. We've been married for so long, somewhere we became stagnant,
And Melissa, can I ask you to do less? Like, just keep it super, super
Just read it.
simple. Yeah, just
Okay.
to focus on being as believable as possible, because particularly in a first read, if you try and put your focus on being expressive, the risk is that you will end up doing too much. So let's just give us the information and trust that the right amount of feeling will come across in it.
Okay. Okay. You're not talking, and you know that only makes me talk more. Maybe that's good. Maybe that's good. Okay. There's this person, we've been spending time together, lunches, meeting, that kind of stuff.
Silence. She closes her eyes tightly.
I slept with him. Kind of.
Tracy opens one eye, taking a peek. Nothing.
No, kind of. I can't believe I said kind of. That's just not something you do in a kind of way. I slept with someone. There, I said it. I slept with someone. Oh God. It's the worst thing I've ever done, but it feels so good to say it out loud. I slept with someone. I slept with someone. I slept with someone. I slept with, please stop me. Please say something.
No reaction.
David Jacobowitz. From work. You met him at the Christmas party. You remember that party? They had a giant paper mache wreath. I kept asking the decorator how he made it. You wore that sweater. The last person in the world I'd ever want to hurt was you, Cal. But the fact that I did and that it could happen at all, I think that just shows how broken we are. And
just like that, Cal opens the door to the moving car and simply steps out. Tracy screams as Cal goes flying. She screeches to a stop as he tumbles to the curb in her rearview mirror. You know, I don't know if this was lifted from the shooting draft of the script, but looking at this, I don't know if I have said this recently, but something like this that a writer puts in, and this might have been copied and pasted from a shooting draft of the script. It might have been transcribed by somebody who watched the film. I literally just pulled it off the internet. Tracy, silence, she closes her eyes tightly. Tracy opens one eye, taking a peek, nothing. If you watch the film, I don't know if these would show up there, but she's supposed to be driving the car. So I want to say that when a writer puts in something like this, it's information, and they are including that information mostly for the people who are reading the script, so they know how the character is feeling, because they don't have the tone of voice, they don't have the context. An actor brings a lot to material. They bring the thing that makes us go, oh, of course, this is the most normal thing in the world. I can see the layers of feeling that are present here. But those aren't always apparent on the page, so they have to put in sometimes these like literary references, like her eyes go stony, or her face hardens, or the kind of things you would see in a novel. Or they have to put in something like this. She closes her eyes tightly. Tracy opens one eye, taking a peek. Nothing. So these kinds of references are not meant to be, here is what the actor should do. They're meant to be information about what's happening in the story. And I think that it's very easy to get stuck there when you're reading an audition script in particular, and to feel like you have to shrug exactly where it says shrug, and you have to answer the phone exactly where it says answer the phone. And one of the actors' jobs is to mix it up, and to find their own way of expressing that. And then we've got Cal gathers himself, takes a breath, and turns toward Tracy. Obviously, this is much later in the film, as they're sort of coming to a resolution.
I miss you. T.I. got complacent, I think. You find your soulmate in high school. You've got the game sewed up in the first quarter, I put in an effort when we were younger, didn't I? I didn't do anything to make you happy. Take you miniature golfing, dancing. You were such a good dancer. All I ever wanted to do is make you love me.
And slow down, Kevin. The same note that I gave Melissa. Just put all of your attention on getting the ideas out and being as simple as possible. Especially because it's fresh. Likely the feeling that's there will meet you. But if you try to lean into the feeling on a first read, you're likely to do too much, almost always. Okay. Let's take it from this last paragraph.
All I ever wanted to do was make you love me. And then you did, really early on. And we got married so young. And I guess I got lazy. I got boring. And I'm furious at you for what you did. I don't totally blame you, if that makes any sense.
And this then, with the italics, is the kind of note that a reader often puts in, or a writer often puts in instead of beat. And it just means that there is some kind of transition that happens.
Okay. I shouldn't have jumped out of the car. I should have fought for you. You fight for your soulmate. At least that's what our 13-year-old tells me.
Right. So there's a fun sort of callback here, to he won't stop fighting for my mom any more than I won't stop sending Jessica texts that make her uncomfortable, and you need to know that. This is, have we got the page number? We do. This is page 49. Now, we don't always have this clue when we're looking at audition scripts, but it's usually about a minute a page, and feature film is going to be, so feature film is a 2.5 hour film. It's going to be about 120 pages, if-ish, give or take. An episodic TV show, especially in the age of Netflix, where they're not having to leave time for commercials, might be 60 pages. And so sometimes you can get a sense of where you are in the story arc just by looking at the page number. Not that that is critical information when you're assessing a script, but it gives you a place to start. So just showing you the Robbie script again. So we're gonna blitz through the questions just so that I can reference them and so they show up here in the video, but I don't think we're gonna go through and answer every one today because it's such a different perspective for these three characters. Instead, I would love to spend that time talking about some of the tools that I typically ask people to use when they're working on a monologue, and then to answer questions from you. Right. So if we're looking at this from Robbie's perspective, we've got, so David, I hear you broke up my parents' marriage, right? Confrontational. So like basically the mom has just walked out of the room. How do we know that? Because we've got Tracy re-enters down here. We carefully read the other person's lines. We carefully read the stage direction so that we get information about the script. We also get this, Robbie props the photo of Tracy and Cal back up. Okay, so probably that means that they're in his mom's office, and that this photo, is face down. So he's got this information. We've got the awkward laugh, from David. Here's the thing, David. Boom, and he starts giving this speech. Now, Eve, if you're going to tape this particular character, despite the fact that it's a stretch, but that's can be some of the fun. Make sure that your reader, you do not wait for them. So this here, basically, Robbie's got this thing to say, right? It's important. It's got momentum. And what often happens, with actors in my class, both the adult class, and the teens classes that I run, is they will stop politely, and she still loves him. And then finally, the reader will say, "Listen, Robbie," and they'll say, "Now I know what you're thinking." And what you do is you build this momentum, and then just lose it completely. And so what I'll often say in class when two people are doing a scene like this, is I'll say, if your reader doesn't say this in time, just power through. You don't respond to what David is saying at all. And so honestly, that listen, Robbie, is not important. It doesn't matter if you overlap it. It doesn't matter if you cut it off. And if your reader is slow, make yourself look good by powering through. And that's the reason that I train that way in class, is because I want you to do that in a real audition. In a real audition, if you are polite and waiting for the reader to do their line, it's your tape that's going to be messed up. Nobody's going to blame the reader later because they're not going to see the reader's face. They're not even going to remember who the reader is. But all of the decision makers who watch that tape are going to be like, yeah, that weird pause in the middle, where she had all that momentum and then she dropped it completely and had to start it all back over again. That's the kind of thing that you will run into. So now, if you are David in this situation, and I just want to say this, right? So you've got two spots where you've got a double dash, which probably means that David's being cut off. Now, if you were auditioning for David and these were the David audition sides, then we've got an ellipsis, which is these three dots, which probably is a trail off. So Robbie, not kind of sure what to say next, so I'm just going to stop talking. And then you've got, yes, I am, and then Robbie cuts you off. So again, you would want to, when you were preparing the scene, make sure that it was reader proof, So you didn't say, yes, I am. This is where you cut me off. Because if the decision makers are watching your tape later, you're the one who's going to look back. And so what you would want to make sure that you did is you just finished that line. So you could either put a period right there, yes, I am, or you could give yourself 2 or 3 more words. What I often recommend is write the end of the line and make it very short, 2 or 3 words, and make it your goal to finish that line before the reader cuts you off. Because then no matter what happens with the reader, you still look good. She still loves him. And so I would give yourself like 2 or 3 word response here. If I was playing David, listen, Robbie, that's not right. Listen, Robbie, I don't think so. Like, it doesn't matter what it is, as long as it's very short and very simple. So that if I say it, it's not going to pull anybody out of the script. It would be a mistake to say, listen, Robbie, I don't know what your mom wants or your dad wants, but I think that we're all adults here, and I'm just going to keep talking until the reader cuts me off. The risk is that the reader doesn't cut you off in time, and then you end up improvising a whole bunch of dialogue that is different in tone, different in delivery. You would not want to do that in an audition script. So, and this is something that, especially if you're asking friends to read with you and they are not professional actors, then reader proofing the scene is probably a good idea if you are, even if you're just doing a Zoom tape, even if you are you're having a friend be on video, and you're taping yourself at home. So something to think about. We've information about Robbie. He's just a punk. Now, this is something that casting put in here. I assume that it's because there was a swear word of some kind in here, and they didn't want to send that out to 13-year-olds. They wanted to wait until they hired somebody and then be like, hey, if we pay you a bunch of money, then are you willing to swear? Because some parents and some teens will turn down auditions that have content that they're not comfortable with. That's my pure guess about why casting put this in. I know a lot more than you think. So for if you are doing this monologue, then the love for Jessica, and it is connected to the relationship, of the mom and the dad, and then you've got this really fun turn or flip that happens. And I don't know if you remember from my lesson on comedy, it was so long ago, that hard flips are very, very normal for film and for comedy. And when you're doing it in film and TV, is you're one place and then you're in another place. So I'm here with David, and I'm making sure this is what I want David to do or feel, and I'm playing this towards David, and then mom comes in, complete change, boom, instant. Hey, no, nothing weird was happening here at all. And the audience knows, and maybe they get the laugh. David knows, and maybe he gets the reaction, but mom hopefully does not know, right? So if you were playing sort of pure drama, then you might make that transition in a slower way. Make sure mom, and the more further you were into pure comedy, the harder a turn or a flip that would be. The more it would be like David, mom, hi. And so I would say play with that. Take a quick look at the story questions, but obviously, like I said, we're not going to go through them. Style, you can pull this off of IMDb. The writer's story, you can definitely find a write-up of the whole film the IMDb write-up might be enough for you. You could probably find a summary of the plot on Wikipedia. There's also a fantastic 2.5-minute trailer available on YouTube. Easy. My story. So whichever character I'm playing, so we're talking about like playing Robbie or Roberta, would be, if you're Eve, then my story is, is it the love for the, what's the part that fires you up, that drives you, right? Is that your love for the person you're obsessed with? Is it the confronting David and putting him in his place? Is it doing anything possible to support your mom and your dad's relationship? Is it something else? You pick the piece of it that fires you up, and you say, right, okay, there's lots of things going on here. The part of the story that was most interesting to me to tell is this. The arc, how does it change from the beginning of the scene to the end? From, hey, is this who you are? To like, here's like, you're wrong, but like my dad wins, like he's better than you. Hey, mom, like I got what I wanted, I put that guy in his place. So what's the change there. Descriptive words for me, descriptive words for the other, always from the perspective of the character you're doing. Very easy to look from the outside at a character like Robbie and say, oh, wow, like, demanding, immature, like there's no way Robbie thinks of that of himself like that. In fact, Robbie is much more likely to think of himself as like mature, intelligent, understanding, like he's got this down, passionate, protective, like what is important to Robbie's self-identity, or your character's self-identity. And that's why I think why we start with, what is your story? Because that can strongly influence this. And then as you start to understand, here's how I want the other person to feel, or here's like the story that is shaping up for me, then your descriptive words for them can help fit that, can help accentuate that, can help bring more of whichever part of the scene fires you up. The script relationship, obviously, this is the, like coworker of your mom's who she's having an affair with, and the personalization, what do I want from this person? Like, what do I, so I want him. It sounds like in that first monologue, Robbie wants, wants David, to like forget this relationship, like go away, leave me and my mom alone. Something in that territory. And the objective phrase, you would pick something emotionally charged, right? Like, and it could be as simple as "you suck," right? Like, or "my dad is better," or "you don't get it," or "I know better," or "I'm so much better than you," right? You find something that fires you up, because the baseline for these questions always is there's no right or wrong. There's only more effective or less and less effective. So there we go. In terms of breaking down a monologue, and I would say one of the most important things is to find the ideas in there and focus on the ideas before the feeling. It's easy to read it and get a sense of, well, look, here's how the character is feeling. But if you try and play feeling, the risk is that you will get caught trying to play feeling. I think what's much more important is figuring out what's happening on the other side. What are the ideas and how am I landing them on the other person? And particularly, how are they reacting? So Melissa or Deborah or Candy, if you were going to choose to do the monologue of the mom, in the car, who's like talking about the affair, the other person is not saying anything, and that silence has to have its own texture. You sort of need to go, what is she thinking? Where are those pauses? Where, what is the look on his face? What is that information? So there's just as much focus on objective and on the other person, even when they're not saying anything. Because really, like, these monologues are still a scene lifted from a movie, and the editor is going to be cutting to that other person's face repeatedly. Yeah, and I mean, I can show you, because I think I pulled the trailer up. You can see it even in the first very little bit of the trailer.
25 years of marriage, you have nothing to say? I'll just say it. I slept with someone. I think the fact that I did it, it just shows how broken we are. How much we really, oh my God.
Right. So the reaction to the silence, and the reaction to him jumping out of the car at the end of the scene is also a piece of the monologue. So throwing that out there, if you're playing right, if so, Kevin, if you decide to do Cal, and I hope you do, then those pauses of like, she doesn't say anything back to you, but that doesn't mean that you sort of power through everything there and only stop at the end. It's like, what is happening on her face? What is she doing? What is it that you want to make her do or feel, and how do you lean into that? Does anybody have a quick question about dealing with monologues, or monologue strategies before I wrap up the lesson? We're just a couple of minutes over today.
Should we do it in sitting for the one in the car?
I think if you want the last beat to make sense on camera, then yes. And should, I don't know, honestly, if one of you decides to do it standing up because you're like, I don't know, I just feel it more like this. I'm trying to think, does she reference the car, otherwise? No, like except for the reaction at the end, she actually doesn't reference the car. So so if your impulse is to do it standing, try both. And if standing fires you up more and makes you feel more connected in some way, that has more energy or is more alive, I'd be really interested in seeing that when we review the tapes for the Actors Challenge on Monday. Something that I've been doing with monologues recently, or even just like large chunks of text, I've talked before about how I will often do audio recordings. Is I'll mark out, I'll take like the first 30 seconds, whether that's the first beat or the first couple of beats, and I'll just listen to that part over and over again until I've got it, and then I'll just listen to the next bit, and I'll usually overlap by a line or two, so that because otherwise there's that telltale pause when an actor gets to the bottom of the page and is like, oh yeah, that's the top of the page. And you're like, you learned that page at a time, didn't you? Totally happens. And it happens with monologues too. Is that if you give yourself that break that sort of supports memory, unless you put in the line of overlap, the strong risk is that you will accidentally rehearse in a pause where it doesn't belong. Kevin, do you have a question?
No, I think you just answered it there. I was going to ask you for memorization tips because I mean, I've eventually memorized it, but it depends if it's 48 hours or 3 weeks, right? Like it's a different, the more time you have, the worse it is sometimes, but.
I would, my strong recommendation is put it into an audio recorder of some kind. Personally I use an app called The Actors Lines. So the Actors Lines is definitely available for both Android and iPhones, made by a local developer who I don't know super well, but he's a friend of a friend, and he's really responsive. Anyway, it's the best app that I've found, and I've used I've only used maybe 3 of them, but it's the most versatile. Yeah, it's just the one I'd recommend. And the last time I memorized a monologue, I just chunked it, and so I recorded my own voice doing it, sort of 30 seconds at a time, so that I didn't have to take the pressure off of like learning it all at once. And that's because that's not because 30 seconds is some kind of magic number. That's because that's where my short-term memory starts to max out. And that app in particular just makes it easy to play only this bit, or multiple bits, or depending on what you want to do. So if you knew for yourself that like 1 line you're fine, 2 lines you start to, and 3 lines is like a little bit of a stretch, maybe you would do 2 lines at a time, and record that. Maybe you would do 3 lines at a time. But the more you can make that process something like functional and enjoyable, the more likely you are to put in the extra time, in my opinion. Right, and having it, having the audio so that you can just do it while you multitask and do other things, has proved really effective for me personally. Okay, looks like Melissa had to take off for her next thing. We are a few minutes over, so even if you have questions, then maybe we can squinch them in at the end of Laura's lesson tomorrow. So hope to see some of you for Laura Bertram tomorrow. Bye, everyone.
Thanks, Michael.